Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to the 888 Align podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Hanna. I'm a serial entrepreneur who likes to immerse into many facets of life, focusing on growth, mindset, healing, and soul alignment. 8 represents strength, prosperity, balance, power, overcoming, stability, and to me, the yin and yang of life. Pain weaves the gratitude for the beauty in life and appreciation for our generational evolution. You're in the right place if you're looking to dive deeper into finding meaning within yourself and your life experiences, work towards transforming into and aligning with your highest version of yourself, take action steps towards building and creating the life of your dreams, as well as explore discussions on health and wellness, balance, self-care, plus areas like travel, fashion, art, culture, manifestation, entrepreneurship, and even a little spirituality. To be 888 aligned means to be aligning to your strongest and most powerful and enlightened version of yourself. To continue to evolve and always be open to growth while staying true to your core values and individuality. Let's get started with this week's alignment. Hello and welcome back to 888 Aligned. Thank you for listening in. I really appreciate you taking the time to tune in, as always. Today, I wanted to talk about something I'm sure haunts all of us at some point within our lives, which is the display of people's lives on social media. Depending on which platform you may or may not spend your most time on, there is a different level of transparency that someone might share, like on Instagram being the picture-perfect highlights of our life, and TikTok sometimes being the more realistic view. But the thing that probably tends to get us all is the jealousy behind it. We look at someone else's feed and sit there and compare our own life, and it becomes really easy to let the comparison take over, and suddenly you look at yours and you feel like shit. And that's just the truth of what we might really tend to feel every so often. And you're scrolling your feeds and seeing people traveling the world and having rich life experiences. Someone is on a yacht in Greece or sipping an espresso in Italy. Maybe you're following some of your favorite influencers and constantly watching them get gifted a ton of beautiful, luxurious products, or being brought to big events, or go on brand trips, or you see someone else with a lot of money making big purchases while you know you barely have a dime in your bank account and a lot of debt. Maybe it's someone who has a family that you've always wished for, or a couple that is so in love and having fun all up in your face, and you are struggling with your love life. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter in what I'm about to say, because the jealousy feeling you feel, we are going to shift that today. And we like to say, well, that's just the highlights of their life, so I know their life isn't really that good. But what if we switched our perspective on this a little and actually started looking at their life as proof? So with that, I'm going to get into today's episode. Okay, so first of all, of course, it is a normal human experience to feel jealous of something you've always wanted that you don't have, that's all up in your face. It's also low vibrational, and low vibe things tend to really feed into each other. It first starts with jealousy and then can easily turn into anger and then even maybe hate. Suddenly you might be thinking, oh, I really don't like that person, and meanwhile you know nothing about them. You're really just potentially triggered by seeing something that hasn't shown up easily in your life or at all in your life before, that you've always wanted, and so of course it's triggering you. And if you've been listening to my previous episodes, in episode 1, where I talked about perception, the subconscious, and projecting, well, that's what you may be doing here, projecting. You're projecting what you're used to in your life onto someone else's life and comparing. Perhaps feeling like your deep-rooted dreams are dangling right in front of you, with this person you're following seemingly coming with ease to them and being incredibly hard for you to get to. I'm sure at some point we've all been there in life. It didn't always start on social media. Growing up and going to high school or college or starting your career, or someone in your family or your friend group, whatever it is, there was always probably someone who had something you wanted, or looked a certain way, or acted a certain way, or walked with a certain type of energy that you couldn't quite understand but felt like, why can't I be like that? Look like that, have that, be able to do that, achieve that as easily as them? Why is their life like that and mine is like this? Today on social media, that feeling is like jacked up on steroids to the max, and it's harder to combat that feeling for several reasons. Okay, so first off, I'm sure you probably know this already, but to reiterate the obvious, our phones are listening to us. It's mass consumerism. So you talk about the things you want, those apps you have the microphone turned on for, and the cookies you accept to each website to track you, and the ads you bypass and click on. They are collecting data on you. So as a result, the algorithm and the ads that businesses are paying for are going to show you in your social media feeds exactly what you say you want. If that isn't direct enough, I don't know what is. Maybe, though, you don't really spend the time to think about that. So here's your reminder. Your feeds are a physical manifestation of what you say out loud that you desire. The algorithm isn't going to try to spare you the jealousy. It wants you to buy the things you say you want. It's what we call a warm audience in marketing. We already know you want it, so you're going to get served ads and videos and content to push you along the funnel to get you to buy into it. Okay, and two, if there is a certain lifestyle you want and you start looking it up, of course the social media algorithm is going to continue to bring you what you kept on looking up and engaging with. Why? Because it wants to keep you on its app longer. The longer you spend on these apps and platforms, inevitably the more money these platforms are making. Not because you are necessarily paying for the apps, and maybe sometimes you are, but again, from a business standpoint, the more data and analytics you provide, then the more these apps can convince businesses to pay for ads and have the data for them to decide who to target, as well as the easier it is for the influencers in that industry to sell you products and concepts, and therefore the more money goes to them and comes back to those brands and businesses. And the more I talk about this, I know sometimes it can really start to frustrate us on the consumer end because it really feels like we are being taken advantage of. And the truth is, in a certain way and perspective of things, of course we are. That's why it's important to kind of do your own version of cleaning up on your socials and really curate a feed that makes you feel good when you're spending time on it, and really just take the time to get off social media and really disconnect when we aren't feeling good, because it can really also bring us down and create this low vibrational loop, which we can definitely go over in another episode. But the point I wanted to get to in today's episode is the idea behind seeing a life that we desire and shifting our emotions and vibrations around it from jealousy to inspiration. A lot of times people grow up needing proof that things are true to believe in them, right? That's like the most obvious statement I could have possibly said. But what I'm trying to say here is that it can be rare that we grow up and believe that we will have a completely different life than what we've seen around us, because that is what we literally grew up in. So that's why we tend to project when we see things we've always desired, but we don't have a way of getting to, and feel jealous about them. Because we may feel like this person was just lucky in life. This person clearly grew up in wealth. This person never had to struggle. This person has no idea what it's like to live in a real reality like the rest of us. And the list can go on and on. That's also why sometimes we hear when we see a successful woman, there are people out there saying, well, she's only successful because she's using daddy's money or her husband's money. That stereotype, of course, is constantly coming from a misogynistic place within our predominantly patriarchal society, and still, as I've said in previous episodes, tends to have a place in the conversation when a woman starts her own business or has a very successful career. And to that point, it's also why when we change internally or externally, sometimes we also get people around us who are close to us and who are used to seeing this specific image of us tend to project onto us what they don't understand or agree with suddenly, because we trigger something in them, something that is different than what we grew up with them doing or believing. So when we recognize that we are triggered by someone else's lifestyle, especially one we see on social media, we can instead shift our focus from feeling angry and jealous to asking ourselves, what is it about this that's making me feel this way? Most likely because we want their life. We want the ease that it looks like. We want success or the wealth, the friends, family, or love life. We want what they have and we struggle to attain it. Or maybe we haven't even seen proof it's possible in our personal lives from those around us, so we don't even believe it. We can easily gaslight the concept too. We can see it with our own eyes and make up a story of how it's not true. We see trolls online do this literally every day, all the time. I see business owners all the time that master making passive income online get trolled constantly about how it's not possible from people who are working their 9 to 5s and likely disliking the way their career or work-life balance is going. And so they don't believe it and say the person is making it up and scamming people. Why? Because they are triggered. And don't get me wrong, of course, there are scammers out there and people who are not truthful and some people who will go a long way to make things up. And that's why really doing your due diligence is important. But there are plenty of people out there who are living a life you may not quite understand or get mad or jealous about because perhaps yours needs some change or you strongly desire a different version of your own. That's a hard truth. I think a lot of us tend to try not to pay attention to or realize because it can hurt to think about it. Why do we want to go into something that hurts? It's the same reason a lot of us struggle to attempt to work on our own traumas and do the shadow work and clear out things and heal things because it's not natural for us to actually decide, okay, I want to go into the place that hurts and I want to work on it. Naturally, our subconscious wants to protect us, so it wants to avoid that at all costs. So it's going to try to distract us. And the deeper we get into things in our life, the longer we do them, the older we get, the harder it may feel to reflect on things we regret. That doesn't mean it won't get better after you take the time to do it, though, regardless of your age or your path in life. So going back to being triggered by what we don't have, let's instead analyze what it is about this person or their life that makes us triggered. And this goes without saying, but of course we can get triggered by other things that we don't want in our life that actually bring up trauma and we get angry to see it. That's a different kind of healing we need to help ourselves with. But today's focus is simply on seeing the things we desire and feeling this intense jealousy surrounding it. So instead of this intense feeling of jealousy, I want you to look at these things that are triggering you and these people's lives as proof of the fact that if it can happen for them, it can happen for you. And I want you to get the details of how they grew up and throw that out the window because I know your brain may go, well, they grew up in wealth, that's why it happened for them. And I didn't, so clearly it's not happening for me. They were at an advantage. Or, well, they grew up with a healthy family dynamic and my parents got divorced, so clearly a happy family life and a love life isn't happening for me. Or isn't easy for me to get to because they had the right example. Or they went to an Ivy League university and I went to a community college. I won't be as successful as them. I don't care what it is, take that trash out. That is your subconscious trying to protect you from what it thinks would be painful for you from the proof you had in your life or lack thereof. You have to tell yourself it's possible and let your mind know that it's safe to believe it's possible for you so that those thoughts stop coming. Sometimes this requires some subconscious rewiring and reprogramming. Our brain creates neural pathways for the subconscious mind to operate from. And when we have experiences, new neural pathways are created. If we experience the same thing over and over, that neural pathway gets a stronger and stronger path. It can be harder to lead astray from them then, and our thoughts regenerate the same belief systems over and over. It doesn't mean it's impossible by any means to change these thoughts. It just means that we are often in a subconscious loop we continue to follow and believe in until we take the time to acknowledge they exist and then work to break those pathways and create new ones. And from a different perspective, if you ever watch a documentary or read an autobiography or see certain press releases or articles on certain celebrities or artists or big public figures, you may sometimes hear them say something like, I always knew I was meant for something different than how I grew up or from what my family did. This stems from what I want you to start shifting your perspective to today. How do you think those people got to thinking the way they did? Well, they were either subconsciously programmed to believe they were made for something more starting at a younger age, or they were surrounded by a circle of people that said it, or they took the time to face the facts of what is going on around them and believe that they can achieve different things and grander things. They didn't let the neural pathways strengthen that told them they were not deserving, or it wasn't possible, or it wasn't meant for them. They literally fed their minds with different materials. That's what I want you to start doing. So when I say there's someone out there as real proof you can actually get the thing you want, I want you to take that and actually go with that. Stop being jealous and look to it as inspiration and motivation. You can go a completely different path than someone else and get to the same goal. Here's a straightforward money example. There are plenty of people out there given trust funds with $1 million born into generational wealth. There are also plenty of people out there who make $1 million not born into generational wealth. Both get the same results, but their paths are different. And before your mind goes, well, how is that fair that way? I'm going to tell you it really doesn't matter. Because if we are sitting here debating on what is fair and what isn't in life, then we are really just spending our energy on the wrong things. If you want to change your life, then don't embrace being a victim of your circumstances. Take charge of them. I know that's some tough love right there, but if I were talking to the people I care about and love in my life and want to help them realize how to make changes in their life for the better of them, that's exactly what I would tell them. Because if we really want to change our lives, we aren't going to get there by complaining and whining our way to the top. That's just not how it is. Our energy in that way will drain us down, bring us down into low vibrations, never attract what we want, and the actions we take won't be focused on what will propel us forward, but rather keep us stagnant. So what I want for you is to look at what you see on social media and in real life, in the world around you, the things you deeply desire, and look at it as proof in the fact that something like this already exists. That means you can and will get there. There's proof of concept for you right there. It doesn't matter how the proof was presented, be it your family members or some random person on social media living your dream life. I know you can get there, but you need to convince yourself you can too, because the person you're going to listen to the most is going to be yourself. All right, thanks for listening in and getting into that 888 alignment. Stay tuned for next week's episode. I'll chat with you guys next time. Thanks for listening to the 888 Align podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to follow along and stay up to date when future episodes drop. You can listen in on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Follow the podcast on social at 888 Aligned Podcast.
Down.